Good afternoon to all of you. I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar on Red Hat Ansible and why it is important to us in the area of automation, especially if you're a managed services provider. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this webinar. I hope you find this useful in your business to derive maximum efficiency and automation. Just want to do a quick sound check. Just make sure you can listen, you can hear me okay. If you can't, please type in the chat window and our organizer will get in touch with you to resolve any issues you're facing. And also, we will take questions at the end of this webinar. So as you think about some questions that you want to ask one of us, please type it into the chat window and we'll address them at the end of this webinar. So once again, thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar, and I'll do a quick introduction to our speakers. My name is Prasad Mucharla. I am the business unit executive for Red Hat at Ingram Micro, and I look after the business end-to-end. With me, I have Ajay Kolapa, who is our product manager for Red Hat. He works with me very closely in delivering Red Hat technologies and solutions to the market. So between us, we will cover off the topic we want to talk to you about in this webinar. So let me jump straight in, right? I'm sure all of you would have heard of Red Hat and you know to a certain extent what they do, right? But simply speaking, Red Hat are a software vendor, right? They take open source technologies and harden it for the enterprise. That's what they do. So what you see with Red Hat, and all of you will know Red Hat as a Linux company, right? But they're no longer just doing Linux. If that's what some of you think about it. They are in multiple areas in IT, especially in relation to hybrid cloud today. So they offer a lot of solutions in middleware, application integration, application development, you name it, right? So they are across the board there. And that's one of the reasons why you have heard in the news a couple of years ago that IBM bought Red Hat for about almost $34 billion, the largest acquisition in software acquisition history, right? But as you can see, the biggest thing that should jump out for most of you is that more than 90% of the Fortune 500 companies use Red Hat products and solutions. So you can be confident that they are a vendor in the enterprise that are really, developing and offering applicable solutions. And moving on, right? So we all hear about cloud, right? Every day, it is the thing. It's been around for many years now. And we all know cloud is a journey. It's never a destination, right? People think I want to get to the cloud. I don't think that's not the way you put it, right? A lot of you understand it on this webinar. But the trick question there is how many clouds you think a customer could be using today, right? And definitely it's more than one. And we all know the reality. And if you look at that small chart on the right-hand side, organizations use multiple clouds today, right? And AWS is one of the biggest ones, of course. We got to acknowledge that. There's Microsoft Azure. You're really keeping a close pace on them. There's Google, there's IBM, etc. And then MSPs such as yourselves are offering your own clouds, right? So suddenly a customer is no longer using one single preferred cloud provider, but many more. So by 2023, the organizations are expected to use at least 10 clouds from a growing number of vendors. So what does that mean? There's a lot of, one is there's going to be less dependency on a single cloud provider, thereby there's no single point of failure, and that is the right thing to do. So what is it that is required when you're going to use multiple clouds? Automation, is the sweet spot, right? This research is a little bit dated because you can see at the bottom that it's been done in December 2017, but the number on the right-hand side there, which reflects that 79% of IT organizations will deploy automation software in 2021. I left it in there because we are in 2021, and that number is where the prediction is 79% of those IT organizations will deploy, automation software by the end of this year at least, right? So why is automation then important, for MSPs? MSPs today, right? You guys pretty much are doing a lot of network management, cybersecurity, as you can read on that slide, in that box, right? Backup and restore tasks and some of the other IT tasks. And that is kind of your traditional definition for a managed services provider, right? And I'm sure a lot of you on this call or this webinar will disagree with me, right? And that's exactly why I said you're now becoming a trusted advisor, right? You're starting to recommend stuff to your customers. You're doing data management, you're doing migration services, you're hosting private clouds. You become that trusted advisor now. So if that is the case, you're starting to add to your portfolio of services that you want to deliver to the market. And if that's the case, you need operational efficiency, because there's also business as usual activities that need to happen, like systems management, etc. You've got to do your what is in your comfort zone or in your key activities that you deliver. Plus, you've got to meet the challenges of what your customers are giving you today and saying, oh, if you can do this, can you also do this as well, right? So you must be able to answer that question to your customers. So then when it comes to that, then you need to be able to automate a fair bit of those tasks that are going to consume a lot of your, the time. So you have your current state in there, right? You've got your growing infrastructure as your data center becomes big. You're using multiple technologies to cater to the demand. And there's a cost for doing nothing. And all of you would understand this, right? Because you can sit back and say, I'm going to keep going like this. And yeah, and that's your wake up call. As soon as you think I can't because there is a cost, and you have a wake up call at that point. And then you say, let me now drive some optimization and consistency across my operations. And there's a business trigger to this. So you'll say, I'll reduce human capital. I don't want so many people on my payroll. I'm going to say, I'm going to use my people a lot more efficiently, right? I'm going to have more salespeople instead of operational people, for example. That's your business trigger that makes you, go down that path. There's an IT trigger. Your IT people come back and complain saying, oh, this is a pain. I'm not going to do this time and time again. It's repeatable. It's a process that we do anyway. What is the automation engine we can use for this? Suddenly then you get isolated acts of automation. Somebody says, hey, by the way, I heard of this tool, maybe this will do the user authentication in this particular fashion, let's just automate it. So you'll get these isolated acts, right? And that's good. It's delivering some immediate cost efficiencies and consistency to the process. Then you really start thinking, okay, now I need to automate, right? So this has given me some immediately good results. Let me now go across the board and look at automation. And that is where your Red Hat Ansible actually comes into play. And I'll explain this a bit more in the following slides, right? You say, okay, I'll start using Red Hat Ansible. I will start to improve my security and resilient services to my clients. I'll increase productivity across the board, not just in the IT space, but also in the other areas that I can think, even internal operations. As soon as you start doing that, you get innovation, right? You start to do edge computing. You have now suddenly space, the time, and the effort that you can put in to driving innovation for your clients. Because from a wake-up call, if you see on the bottom left-hand corner, to scaling and growing, I think the keyword is everybody wants to scale and grow their businesses, right? So you move from left to right, and that's what you do. And as an MSP, I urge you to look at where you are in your automation journey. If you're in the current state where it is, then obviously you've got to very quickly move through the others, right? And this is a journey, as it is. It's always a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. And we know, you've got to make sure that your organization is ready for that sort of automation, right? So then we come to the point of transformative automation, and you would have heard these terms from various Gartner reports, etc. Automation can be a double-edged sword, right? There could be job displacement, and no one's arguing against it. There will be across routine areas, but at the same time you have job creation. As I talked about in the last stage is innovation, right? You're going to have that in new product development, innovation. You would have job creation. So think of automation as a change maker, not something where people lose jobs. I think that is where the hesitancy comes in, right? Because as customers are demanding less and less time, it's that instant gratification, right? Where you're able to pretty much use a Spotify or iTunes to listen to a song just because you just remembered it. That instant gratification, customers will start to demand from you that a new user creation cannot take more than 2 minutes, right? So that's where the automation comes in. So you got to think of it from that angle, right? And transformative automation is basically that key line there is hire or automate at the bottom that you can see. When you want to say, I need 2 more headcount to do this job of making sure that I get my billing correctly to my customers, your immediate nature should be, do I hire or do I automate? That's transformative automation. It's got to be within the culture of the organization. It cannot be based on technology. It's got to be on, say, no, I know, I got to be accurate in my billing. I'm going to start with automation, not with hiring a person. It's got to be that way. That's where transformative automation is, and that's where the thinking is these days, right? And so when you start to do transformative automation, your adoption needs to be around, you've got to have a strategy, which means you've got to default to a strategy of automation. You've got to build that foundation. Without that, you've got to have a team that is responsible for automating tasks or automating activities within the organization. And then the adoption, you can pretty much, we all know, being IT people, that at the adoption phase, a lot of applications will fail, right? Users just don't take to it, or there are too many errors, or so on. So your adoption, your change team there really is critical to make sure that the automation is adopted. And of course, on the right-hand side, you've got your technology, your process, everything needs to fall in line. That will then drive this entire innovation journey forward. So you can see, as an MSP, as a managed services provider, all those three points are key to how you build your automation adoption strategy. So then you can come to the point of, all right, I'm going to automate it, but what am I going to do? I need an automation solution, right? So you need a complete solution. That's the difference. You're not saying I need an automation tool. You're saying I need a solution. So then you have to choose a platform. And that's where you're going to hedge your bets on, right? You can say, this is going to be my automation platform. It's going to be the one that's going to define my processes, define my strategy, and then give me feedback at the same time, and also have a log, right, to make sure that I'm compliant. So that's your automation platform end to end. So it's got to support your workload portability, moving workloads, and making sure it's logged correctly. Something that's very easy to adopt, and we'll see why Red Hat Ansible is one of that. And it doesn't lock you in. Again, as I said, Red Hat takes an open source software, hardens it for the enterprise. So yeah, well, you don't like it anymore, you can always, it doesn't lock you in. You can go back to an open source model, right? I wouldn't suggest you do it, but it's possible. And then you have enough management tools within it. Management tools meaning tracking it, logging it, compliance, security, all of that stuff. And then also decide on a vendor that provides consulting and training solutions, because obviously, any skill that you learn probably today has a lesser life cycle than 5 years ago. So you've got to keep a continuous training and certification cycle, and you need to have a vendor that offers that. So with Red Hat Ansible automation platform, your transformative automation comes with all of those features that I've listed there. Complete support, vendor interoperability, it's simple to adopt, massive scalability, of course, right? Heaps and heaps of nodes can be managed. And of course, agentless deployment, right? You do not need to install any agents on the target systems or target hardware, right? It will directly point to the IP address, and it will execute the task on the target machine without having to install anything on the target machine. I think that is pretty much says about the platform, how open it is and how easy it is to deploy. And a lot of supported partner content. There are existing code books, or what you call playbooks, on Red Hat Ansible that are already available, GitHub, etc., anywhere that you can download. They're certified, and you can basically deploy them straight into your data center. So that's your, it goes back to what I've mentioned before, the transformative automation. You start with the automation in mind. That is the end goal. You start with that, and then all of this ties in very nicely to how you deploy and implement an automation solution. So of course, this is a bit of why you need a Red Hat Ansible. Efficiency, of course, we talked about it. You will maximize your current resources, and your entire organization is in the journey on the automation. Of course, you will increase your productivity automatically as you energize your current headcount to go and deliver much more value-added tasks, right? So that means your business outcomes are accelerated. You are ready for the hybrid cloud, where if you're not already, the multi-cloud capabilities come in. You can take a workload from one cloud provider, move it to another cloud provider. If your customer is complaining on a public provider costs, for instance, Ansible can do that. You devise a playbook very quickly. Of course, you control your risks and expenses at the same time, because as I talked before, all the logs and the tracking is to make sure that you're compliant, especially if you're hosting regulated industry workloads, right? So those are things that Red Hat Ansible brings to the task, right? Now, this probably is one of the key things into your Ansible differentiator, right? So it's across your entire IT footprint. That's it. You can do all of the stuff that is there. You can orchestrate, you can manage configurations, you can deploy apps, you can provision, you can deliver continuously, and so on, right? And that is the key thing. So, but then look at the sort of systems that it can do it on: firewalls, load balancers, infrastructure, storage. I think that is your automation platform, right? So pretty much you got one solution that can go across your entire data center and do a whole bunch of tasks, right? Considering with all of the agile development that's going on, the multiple code drops you can get in a week on a specific app that customers are not deploying. And no app is going to be 100% on day one. We all know that. The number of code drops we get on our iPhones or on our Samsungs, it's amazing, right? So we don't hesitate anymore to basically install those updates, right? We are all excited and yep, let's get some new features. So across that, it's that automation that's actually delivering it, right, to your mobile phone, to your target device. So it could be Ansible that's doing it today already. It could be some other tool as well, but that's where the industry has gone to, and we all know that, right? It's no secret. Now, in terms of the technologies that Ansible uses, right? So all of that, I'm sure, right? Any of you on this call will figure out that I'm at least using one or two of these, right? Definitely in my current stack. So if you look at the public cloud providers, you got AWS and Azure definitely doing it. IBM Cloud is there now, right? It manages all of that. And in terms of container management, it can deploy your container images, into Docker, VMware workloads as well, right? Virtualization, OpenStack, you name it, right? And across the platform. So the best thing is, I'm sure a lot of you here are deploying your workloads on Windows, but look at the stuff that Ansible can automate on Windows itself, which is probably the biggest chunk for a lot of IT organizations today in terms of their target platforms, right? Same with networks and DevOps and monitoring. So I think this is one of the key slides you can take away, and I'm sure we will email you the slide deck at the end of the webinar that you can look. And when it says there plus more on that slide, just get to the Red Hat website and you can expand on that and see what more have been added. So this is a kind of a living slide, if you ask, and there's a fair bit of stuff going on, and it's getting updated on a regular basis. And so to reiterate why Red Hat Ansible platform, you can see the trust, deliver, and scale. So one thing is you can trust Red Hat to give you an enterprise solid platform to deliver automation. So you can trust Red Hat. They've been in the business for 25 years, and it is like they offer a fair number of solutions, and that work cross-vendor. I think that's the key thing. They've got a whole bunch of certified Red Hat and partner ecosystem content that you can readily use. It's available free of charge to download and start using it. End-to-end support, as I mentioned. It's stable enterprise code. So what will happen is that the code, you can rely on that code, right? So let's say you have a problem within the code, there's some sort of a bug, you raise a request, and somebody from Red Hat will immediately be working with you to fix it straight away or fix back straight away for it, right? That's a key thing you need when you're deploying an open source software. It's that support. Is there somebody behind you, right? And of course, you can deliver that. You've got one platform, which is you buy Red Hat Ansible platform. It's one subscription that manages your entire organization across for hosted services, and also how you're doing with the partner-led services, right? Even your downstream partners can make use of it and buy it from you. Same thing is then you go up to, you can scale it. As I talked about, it can go across thousands of devices, right? The scalability is hybrid cloud ready. You can deploy something on a private cloud, on a multi-cloud, you can anything, and can still manage it for you. Of course, management and governance, which I spoke about, right? Which is the key thing today. It's all about security. It's all about governance, able to backtrack to see what has happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. I think we're all in agreement on that. Right, again, just to quickly, the stable, just want to make sure we get this right? So stable enterprise code, the premium support services, the certified content, and it's a platform, right? So this is the why Red Hat piece that you can take away and use this, right, to apply into your management to see why you should really start using Red Hat Ansible. Now you're going to ask me, okay, what is the competition, right? And I can go through this slide in detail, as much as I can, as to who are the competitors for Red Hat. And you can see there's Chef, there's Puppet, SaltStack, three of them that we have put together there. But if you focus on the left-hand side of the chart on Ansible Tower, key things, you don't need any specific development skills. It uses what's called YAML, yet another markup language, as it's called. It's a playbook, and you can point that playbook to any source code. So your actual tasks can be written in Python, it can be in Ruby, it could be in Perl, any of them. You can just point the playbook to go and execute that code. So it's a very clear differentiation between who's writing the automation playbook and who's writing the actual code. Either you can have the same person do both, or you can actually split the task and saying, okay, anything on the target systems, I'm going to use Perl, and this is going to be my developer doing that. Automation developer looks at the entire organization and only uses YAML, for example, to point to those playbooks. So you can actually split it very nicely. Goes back to that point of the automation platform and have it integrated. It's agentless, no need to deploy any code on the target machine. It can point, as I said, with an IP address, with the credentials, and it does the job, right, straight away. It is simple enough. It uses SSH to get into the target servers, right? All of the stuff, configuration, deployment, orchestration, totally application focused as well. Now, Chef, Puppet, and SaltStack, again, the initial thing is, you can see there in the first line, the Ruby, you need to know Ruby, right? Or in SaltStack's case, you need to know Python. They're client agents. You have to have specialized certificates, requires developers, steep learning curve. This is not an exercise to say that they're bad in a way, but what it says is we're putting it forward saying these are the things you need to gear yourself or gear your organization so that to implement those. And they are automation tools. They're not all of them are platforms, right? So remember that you will be locked in at some point in time during the process. Initially, it might be very good, and then you get locked in. Do you want that for your organization, or do you want to stay open? As I said, you got a get out of jail free card with Ansible Tower, Red Hat Ansible, right? You can still go open source, right? But typically with support on an open source solution, you wouldn't do that, right? But then it is an open source product, right? So this is where some of these, the differences lie, right, between Ansible Tower and so on, right? But it is there for you as a reference, how you want to basically look at Ansible Tower as opposed to the other tools. Now, nothing goes beyond this, this big quote that Ansible is now used by Microsoft. You can see the quote there, right? It's not only changed how their networks are managed, but there's a cultural transformation within their organization. So that is the key. This is where I talked about the transformative automation. If someone like Microsoft can pick up Ansible and do it in that fashion across their network, across their clouds, I don't think it go. This is one of probably the best reference of the case studies that you can see. There's this particular case study is also available on the Red Hat website if you want to go and take a look at it and read through in detail, right? Now that said, with Ansible, I will just pass it on to my colleague Ajay Tolapa, who is our product manager. He'll talk you through what is called a Red Hat Ccsp. It's called Red Hat Certified Cloud and Service Provider Program, a mouthful, I understand, but how you can closely work with Ingram Micro to use that program to deliver Ansible to yourselves and your clients. So Ajay, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Prasad. Thanks for the introduction. If you could just go to the next slide, please. Yeah, what is the Red Hat Ccsp program? In short, it stands for Red Hat Certified Cloud and Service Provider Program. So what it actually does is it allows you to consume it on a pay-as-you-go process. So the program is totally opposite to the on-prem side of things. So it allows people like you, like managed service providers, cloud partners, hosting, and SIs to host and resell Red Hat on a consumption basis. So if you see the infographic on the right, you can see it's a pay-as-you-go kind of a model. And if you want to join this program, we will send this deck to you. You can click on the link provided there. It will take you to the Red Hat portal, and you click on the business partner link for you to join the Red Hat Ccsp program. There are some questionnaires involved in that, which you need to answer it, and we can help you with it if you get your stuff. And once the application goes through, you are a part of the Red Hat Ccsp program. It's as easy as that. Next slide, please, Prasad. Now, what is the fundamental difference between the on-prem program and the Ccsp program? So in the on-prem program, the subs are owned by the end user and not by the reseller. So that's the fundamental difference. And they must not be used to provide services to third parties. So in essence, once the subs are sold through a reseller, they go to the end user and that's about it. No, you're not supposed to use it to do any kind of service. So that is why we have what we call as a cloud program tailor-made for partners like you, where you own the subs and provide services to the end customer. And an end customer is not visible in the Red Hat CMS schemes because you are the last point of contact between Red Hat and the customer. Red Hat will not talk to the end customer because you're providing the service. And more importantly, we got a flexible billing model that is monthly and also yearly. You could kind of it a bit different, but you can also commit to a yearly pricing depending on your usage and get a better price. So that's the basic difference between the two kind of buying mechanisms. I would probably like Prasad to shift to the next slide now. So what you say as a CSSP, what a CSSP partner receives is that flexibility, pay as you go. The procurement is simplified. More importantly, the support in a CSSP program is 24/7 premium. Whereas in the on-prem, you got an option of standard 9 to 5 or 24/7, depending on what you can afford. Whereas in the case of a CCSP program, the support is all 24/7 and is certified to work with a lot of third parties as well. And you get access to all the range of Red Hat products. There's no limitation on what you can buy. As long as you're on the program and you're reporting the usage, you can access all the products. You get ongoing security patches. Uh, just a bit of trivia here. Red Hat fixes any bug within 24 hours of having discovered it. 98% of the bugs are fixed within 24 hours. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, in the normal commercial model, Red Hat has got access to the end customer. For example, the end customer has got an issue with Red Hat software. They can log in a ticket with Red Hat, and Red Hat will step in and try to solve it for them. In the case of Ccsp program, Red Hat will not talk to the end customer. The partner has to log in the ticket on Red Hat and then work with Red Hat to solve the issues of the customer front. This is the basic difference in the programs. That's it in a nutshell, but you can always reach out to us for more information on how to sign up for the program, what else is required from an infrastructure setup, and we can guide you on all that. With that, I hand it back to Prasad for him to take you through the rest of the presentation. Thanks, Prasad.
Thank you, Ajay. So I think one of the key things that Ajay mentioned was to, when you are passing on a Red Hat subscription to your end customers, and the end customers have an issue, they contact Red Hat for resolving that issue, right? So as a partner, you're out of the loop when you are basically doing a resell transaction. But let's say if you come to the CCSP model, you kind of hold control on making sure that it's resolved, right? So it's a premium support that Red Hat will give you and your customers. So you are the partner in the middle. You're offering the service, so you get a lot more support when things go wrong, or when something has to be, a patch has to be developed and applied. So I think that's the key thing here. And of course, as Ajay mentioned as well, it's a monthly charging model. I think everybody is moved. I think CapEx is going to get outdated pretty soon. It's all going to be OpEx the way things have moved, right? And that's exactly why managed services partners like yourselves are in the business and you're really, really successful, right? I think it's key that you guys are still in the middle, offering that value added and that extra innovative services to your clients, and Red Hat becomes that very nice enabler. The technology becomes enabler to delivering it to your clients. And of course, you need to have the premium support to deliver that, right? So thank you, Ajay. And moving on, one of the things we really wanted to highlight to you is that Ingram's got a technology experience center, a tech, as we like to call it internally. There's a dedicated Red Hat Ansible environment that is running in this center, and it is used for to run any demonstrations of Red Hat Ansible to your end users, right? You can book time at this center. Ajay can help you with that process. It's very easy. And then the Ingram team will basically help you, and we will run the demonstration for you and your clients if required at a convenient time. So the key thing is, you will get to have a play, see how Red Hat Ansible works. There are a whole bunch of use cases that are already there. For example, how do I deliver a Windows patch to 100 servers, right? Within minutes instead of hours or days, right? How do I basically do ping tests on various Cisco devices, for instance, and make sure I'm able to collect the data and formulate it and have a look at it, right? Things like that. There are a fair few use cases that you can basically take advantage of and see it, and probably that'll be the trigger for you to say, hey, if you can do this, all this kind of stuff, let me go and maybe I've got all these other things that are really taking a lot of my time. Let me figure out, and then the team in the tech can really help you with that piece, right? So make sure you reach out to Ajay and I, and the email addresses are there in the slide deck. Of course, the slide deck will be sent to all of you. Please use the contact information in there to get in touch with us if you would like to make use of it. We can make a booking as well, right? Why Ingram, right? So considering we are part of the Ingram company here. Ingram is is a distributor, one of the biggest distributors in the world. We distribute a fair number of hardware and software and services to a whole bunch of partners in the system, right? We've got about 160 plus vendors that we support here in Australia. We have an e-commerce platform where our partners log in and buy especially cloud services in an automated fashion. We are always delivering enablement like this session to our partners on a consistent basis across various technologies, it's Cisco or it's HP or IBM or any of them, right? So we are this one-stop shop, right, because of the ecosystem of vendors, right? And also we have got a dedicated tech team as well that will actually help you. So the tech teams are very nicely, split across hardware, software, server, storage, and so on, right? So each of these teams can help you get things like the bill of materials correct, make sure the configurations are right, and you're getting the best bang for your buck, right? So we can, again, a tech team like that will be able to deliver these services. All you have to do is ask, right? And you got Ajay's contact details on that side. So Ingram being that one-stop shop for you, it's not just Red Hat, by the way. You can buy across any of these 160 vendors that we support today, right? And that list is also growing, right? Now, before I wrap up, to the this session, just a quick, poll question that should show up now. If you can answer that, that'll be helpful. Thank you for answering that question. I'll just quickly wrap up the last slide. So basically, Ingram and Red Hat, it's a winning combination, right? Made possible for all of our partners. Again, within the Ingram ecosystem, we got a large set of partners, and we offer joint solutions. They offer joint solutions using Red Hat technologies. It's not just Red Hat technologies alone. A Microsoft vendor, as we saw in that earlier case study, right? Can offer a Red Hat solution together to provide the best possible solution to an end customer, right? It's a question of today, there is no one vendor fits all anyway, and that's been the case for many, many years now. It's a question of bringing the right technologies together to bring the best value to a customer, right? So we also have a digital platform, for you to go to market with Red Hat. And we can talk about this in the coming sessions, where we will teach you how you can actually expand your partner base with offering Red Hat solutions, and Red Hat and Ingram will work with you to open up the market for you a lot wider, right? Regular enablement on Red Hat, like this, sessions like these, it's going to happen all through the rest of the year and so on, to give you the best possible skills, and also the roadmap to acquiring those skills and delivering that solutions to your clients. And of course, I talked about the 160 plus vendor technologies to bring the best to your customers. And that's pretty much the last slide that I had in terms of talking about Red Hat Ansible. If you've got any questions, I'm looking at the chat window to see if there's any questions that come up. And I'll give you a minute or so to type in any questions that you would like me to answer before wrapping up. Just a reminder, please type in any questions you have into the chat window, please. Okay, I got one question that's just come up. The question is, what uptake are you seeing with Ansible in terms of mid-market customers, and what positioning is best to get customers to adopt? Right, in the mid-market, as you say, mid-market can be any customer that's got less than 500 seats, 1,000 seats. The way you classify them is up to different organizations do it in different ways. But where I will talk to where about, let's say, 50 seats, 50 to 100 seats, we're seeing the uptake consistent. I would love to see it a lot more faster. Again, the reason for that being it's an automation platform. You need to look at automation as a whole. And so from a mid-market perspective, I think there's a lot of scope in bringing it a lot more into the market, and make the market see the advantage, or make the customers see those advantages. But I would say at the moment, it is consistent, and we are seeing, and there's no other way but to go up in terms of the growth. Again, it goes back to the easiness with which you can adopt Ansible, right? So we're seeing a lot of that consistently go up in terms of Ansible. Hope that answers your question. The next one I've got is what is the advantage of acquiring Ansible through a consumption model like Ccsp? Ajay, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sir, thanks. I'll take that. The advantage of a consumption model is that you don't have to pay upfront for the subs you will not consume. For example, if you want to buy Ansible through the on-prem program, the minimum entry point is about 100 nodes, for which you have to pay about $17,000 upfront on a standard support level. And whether you use it or not, you end up paying the amount of capital outlay in the beginning. Whereas if you go for a scalable model like Ccsp, where you have less commit, you pay on a monthly basis. Though the entry point is still 50 nodes, you don't have to commit to that upfront, and depending on how much you report the usage, you will be paying for that. And just to give you an idea of what that could cost is about $70 a month at a 50 node bare minimum consumption model for Ansible to Ccsp. So you're not locked into it. It's up to you to drop in or drop out. If you scale up, you pay that much. Otherwise, you don't lose much compared to the other option which you have. I hope that answers the question, Prasad, or do you want me to elaborate more or others?
Yeah, no, yeah, the flexible pricing model is the key. The flexible way you can consume it is also the key, right? So that's what. No, thank you, Ajay. I got one more question, a couple more actually. Which parts of MSPs can benefit the most? Infrastructure, cloud, security, etc. How well can it retrofit into existing service offerings, right? So to answer that question, basically where we are seeing MSPs benefit a lot today, and it's a position as of today where we have seen is on the infrastructure side, right? For example, Windows patch management has been a big one, right? Where we are seeing it's kind of the one that is consumes the most amount of time, but also you want to automate it. So that's why we have seen in terms of cloud, we have not seen workload movement being used yet in terms of cloud, but definitely from a cloud perspective to deploy a VMware workload into an existing on-premise or into a private cloud, we have seen use cases of that. We have seen people manage that using Ansible. Security, definitely from a point of view is where the security software has actually figured out that there's a threat, for instance, and you want to act upon that threat level. That's where Ansible comes in very, very handy, and you want to remediate on the target system. So let's say you've got some sort of a hacking incident that's happened. So your security, your SIEM tool, security incident and event management tool, has found that and it has sent it to the log. You can get Ansible to act on it, look at the target system, and basically either bring it down, for instance, right, or apply a patch or whatever it is. That's where we have seen a bit of security. And again, I go back to where we have worked with a few vendors like Cisco there to do something like that. And Cisco, for example, have been fantastic in the way they worked with us on these sort of solutions, right? So it can retrofit. So depending on how you want to deploy it, so let's say if you've got existing service offerings, for example, as I said, in security, for example, or infrastructure in terms of patch management, what are we using it? You can get Ansible to monitor those tools as long as that tool can basically send a log into Ansible, and you want Ansible to act on that log, for instance. So it depends. Of course, it'll depend heavily on what the other tools are and other service offerings are to retrofit it. But definitely, it's possible to retrofit. I'm sure a Red Hat architect can dive into a lot more detail than me on how we can do that, right? But definitely, from what you mentioned there, infrastructure, cloud, security, definitely we have seen. And there are quite a few use cases as well, which we can point you to. And I've got one more question. Yeah, and it's something similar. They're kind of, I think these questions just came one on top of the other. What sort of use cases are you seeing the most? The use cases, as I said, is infrastructure primarily, is where a lot of the workload is, and that's what they're using Ansible a lot for. But again, in terms of workload deployment, and we've seen that as well, where you need to deploy, workloads into various clouds or into various private clouds. Definitely, we have seen that. And you want to do rapid application code drops, which means you want to get it from, before you hit to the deployment stage, you want your DevOps cycle to do a couple of tasks. That's where we're seeing Ansible as well. So as you can see, it's truly a platform, right, that it can do end to end in terms of your IT operations. And there's nothing, as I said, there's this chart that shows you all the technologies it will work with, and that it's amazing as a tool what it can do. But again, just want to reiterate, do reach out to us, when you have questions, when you want to have a bit of a brainstorm as how can I use Ansible to deliver better solutions to my customers. I think that's the key. I think that's the question you ask, and that's what we would love to come out and help you guys achieve the best efficiency possible with Red Hat products, and of course definitely Ansible. So thank you for your time to attend this webinar. I'm sure you found this useful. I really enjoyed talking to you guys, and hopefully all of you are keeping well and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks all for attending. Thank you.